Hello everybody, it's time for more extreme economics. Let's talk about inflation. The inflation rate is how much more expensive are things this year as compared to last year. So, for example, the price of gasoline is 99 cents a liter. Last year it was 83 cents a liter or something. So the inflation was 83, so that's 16% approximately. About 16% inflation in gasoline. So that is the inflation rate. Inflation rate is like total inflation. So the government says the inflation rate is 3%, even though in reality it's more like 7%. So the government is reporting 3% inflation or 2% inflation, and this is the core inflation. Core inflation. Core means they do not include energy or food. Now, they're basically saying that, this is the cost of everything except food and energy. For some reason, the government doesn't think that food and energy is something that you need. So they just kind of ignore that. So that is called core inflation. Now, what they do to get the inflation number lower, because when you have lower inflation, you can say that GDP is higher, so it makes the economy look better. What you do is, in the inflation, you track like 800 goods. That's the Consumer Price Index, the CPI. And in the CPI, if something gets expensive, like let's say whole wheat bread gets expensive, you just substitute it for white bread. And that's called substitution. Substitution. Substitution is when something becomes too expensive, so they say, well, people aren't buying that anymore, let's just say we're going to use something else. So if the price of expensive steak goes up by 100%, they could just say, you know what, we'll just take the price of beef instead. And that lowers the core inflation. Even though they don't even use beef, they exclude food. So we could say something like computers. They say, oh, the good computers increased by this much, but the bad computers actually fell. So we could say, well, let's take those bad computers and we'll just use that as our core inflation number. So another trick that they use to get the inflation rate lower is adjustments for quality. Adjustments for quality. Adjustments for quality are like this. Let's say I have television, right? Satellite television. And in 2008, I had 100 channels. But in 2009, I had 200 channels. But the price stayed the same. So the government says, well, you got 200 channels. That means you get twice as much channels. So the quality has doubled. So effectively, the price has gone by half. So what they do is they say, well, instead of the price being the same, you got twice the channels. So we'll say the price went down. And they just say the price went down, and they use that to calculate the rate of inflation. So that's why we're seeing all this deflation that the government's talking about, yet the price of everything is still going up.